Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. In your opinion, do ghosts exist, and why? Most of the time, no. When I turned off the lights in the basement and I'm running to the top of the steps as fast as I can, yes. I sure hope so. I hope there are ghosts in different dimensions and parallel universes, etc. The thought of living and working and paying taxes till you die and then it's lights out is lame as FCK. Honestly not sure. When I was 12, I believe I saw a ghost. It was the night after my cat had died. He used to run up and down the stairs and my other cats would chase him when they played together. That night, I saw him run up the stairs like usual, despite him being buried in the backyard earlier that day. My other cats followed him up the stairs like they did when he was alive, and my mom also saw it happen. We always said he was saying goodbye. Never saw anything like that again though. I'm about as rational as they come. Never believed in ghosts until I was 30. My partner and I were on a camper van trip around the East Cape of NZ. Pretty remote landscape and a lot of the land is owned by Maori, indigenous to NZ. We stayed at a campground close to the East Cape Lighthouse so we could get up in the morning and catch the first sunrise in the world. That night my partner had a sleep paralysis dream which doesn't happen often for her. She dreamt a Maori woman was wailing with anguish near our camper van. Like screaming at the top of her lungs. She mentioned it to me the next morning as I was trying to hustle to get us up before sunrise. I'll admit, I didn't pay it much attention. A couple of months down the track at Christmas time, catching up with the family and my cousin is dating a Maori lad called Tom who hails from near the East Cape. We spoke to him about our travels but never mentioned my partner's dream, was just a bad dream at this stage. Tom brought up that the lighthouse was meant to be haunted. AMD asked us if we had seen any ghosts. Because I need absolute proof before I subscribe to the notion that ghosts exist, I pressed him for details about the haunted lighthouse before telling him about my partner's dream. His response was, "The lighthouse is haunted by a Maori woman whose husband sailed off to sea and never returned." Neither me or my partner had ever heard this story prior to our travels. How can that be explained? No. No proof. Yes, but not how we described them. I'm agnostic. I believe that consciousness is far too special to be coincidental. I think once we die, something has to happen to that spirit, and that maybe they continue on from some other level, observing us or living out a different kind of life oblivious to us. Yes, they do, but I feel like the credibility of ghosts existing has been severely damaged by so much fake bullshit people post online for attention. Yes, they are leftover electrical impulses in your brain that are incomplete due to atrophy. The physical manifestations of those signals, hearing/sight etc., are a result of an incomplete signal being processed. Think of it as pieces of memories leaking into your information intake stream. No, in my opinion, the soul of a human animal is only just the collection of its memories, so there is no way of a human ghost to stay alive if there is nothing physical to remember on. In this way of thinking, dead is the same state as not being born. Yes, I haven't seen any, but I heard one. I even had a witness, my mom. She was in my doorway talking to me about something, and the house we lived in was completely empty except for us and the movie I was watching on bedroom TV was paused and my mom was mid-sentence when she was cut off by the clear sound of a woman humming. It wasn't a quick thing either. This humming went on for a good 15 to 20 seconds as me and my mom just sat there wide-eyed looking at each other. There was absolutely nothing that could have made that sound, and I haven't heard it again since. I used to think it was just nothingness after death, but that one instance changed my mind. I have no idea what comes after death, but I take comfort in knowing that I now know that there is in fact something. I just don't want to find out yet. Lol. I think that maybe some kind of supernatural entity can exist. Here is my reasoning. My dad enlisted in the army during the Vietnam War, but spent his whole time on a mountain in Africa at some radio relay station or something, Cagnes Station in modern-day Eritrea. This experience was an integral aspect of his personality, regularly talking about Eritrea or other African-related topics. 50 years later, in October of 2018, my wife and I had a baby boy. My dad was so excited to have a grandson, he was beside himself. In June of 2019, my dad was in a fatal car accident. We got home from his funeral and our son was crying, and suddenly Africa by Toto started playing on our Google Home. which seemed to soothe my son. Several times a day for the next several weeks, that song would just start playing out of nowhere, typically appearing to be a response to my son being upset. We signed out of all devices, did everything we could do to be sure we weren't being messed with or anything, but we couldn't find anything causing the issue. Part of me thinks it was akin to my dad singing my son a lullaby, but who knows for sure. We don't die, we change form and cross through the veil. My first birthday after my son passed away, I had to bring the dogs to the vet for the day for teeth cleaning. Usually, my two sons would race to call me first on my birthday. My oldest son called to wish me a happy birthday. My cell phone was low on charge and the vet wasn't too far, so I plugged the phone into the charger. I never go anywhere without the phone. I drop the dogs off. The phone I have speaks the caller or texter's name. As I drive, I hear my phone go off. It's saying unknown caller and ringing. I search my purse and pockets, but I let it go so I don't get into an accident. As I approach the light, I hear unknown caller and the phone ringing again. I look everywhere during that red light for that phone. Then I think, my phone's at home. I return home and there that phone is sitting on the table charging. I have had many experiences like this since my son passed away. I know he called me to say happy birthday. One day when I was 10, I had a sudden urge to wear a necklace. I was a thorough tomboy and never wore jewelry. I just instinctively grabbed a necklace that my great-grandmother had given me the Christmas prior out of my very full jewelry box. I ended up sitting on the bus next to a teacher. We were talking and I started talking about my great-grandma. I talked about her for the whole ride to school. This might have been normal if I thought about my great-grandma often, but I really didn't. She hadn't even crossed my mind in months. Later that day I learned that she had passed away early in the morning. Another experience I had was when I was 6. I still remember it in detail. I got home from school and went straight to my room. I walked in and the air by my dresser was shimmering like a cloud of iridescent light, then the cloud shifted and disappeared into my wall. I stood there for a moment wondering what it was, so I left to tell someone about it. I was halfway through explaining what I'd seen when my dad got home. I remember how sad he looked as he walked in. He was holding our dog's collar and crying. Our dog had gotten out and was hit by a car an hour before. Thirdly, when my son was a toddler he made up a friend named Otto. I figured it was a game or an imaginary friend, so I just ran with it. About 2 weeks later my son came to me and said I don't see Otto anymore. At that point I asked some more questions about Otto. My son responded, I talked to Otto. I asked what they talk about. He said Otto died in the water. He breathed water. He died. My son was 2.5 at the time and he's never been good at improvising stories. We also hadn't covered water safety, drowning, or death with him yet. Another notable thing is that he never once said the word drown like he would have if he'd heard a story about someone drowning. I can't say for sure what Otto was, but I did Google drownings of people with similar names to Otto. I didn't come up with any results, but that doesn't say much. I work in hospitals. You know, places where people die all the time. Want to know how many ghosts I've seen? None. Yes, they do. My family has a family ghost named Billy Abel. He used to live on family land, but his house burned down with him in it. To date, on my dad's side of the family 3 generations have had him. He's mostly innocuous. He just makes doors open at will, makes you think someone knocked on the door when no one is there, makes car noises like someone is in the driveway. Spooky stuff, but nothing truly harmful. Around the time each son moved out, Billy would follow them and their father, my dad, granddad, and great-granddad, stopped hearing and having that stuff happen. I'm the first girl to inherit Billy. My dad hasn't had an issue since I moved out, but I've had doors opening on their own and noises outside when no one is there, and even my back door unlocking when I haven't gone out back in days. I take the Schrodinger's ghost view. They exist because I've seen and heard them. They don't exist because there's no known physics science that supports the possibility. Yes. Because it's more fun to believe they exist. In a manner of speaking, yes. But I also believe we have a severely limited understanding of how the universe works. So spirit or paranormal experiences could be any number of things we just can't comprehend, and which we don't have the scientific understanding of yet. Hell, They might caused by neurons in our brains that have been quantum entangled to neurons in another brain from a different time or dimension, and sensory stimuli are leaking through to us that way. There's some evidence to suggest quantum entanglement can be bound to large collections of atoms, such as a centimeter square block of salt. See University of Chicago Magazine, Volume 96, Number 6, or it could just be some sort of energy manipulation or expression that we don't yet understand. The more traditional spirit encounter would probably fall under this category, or it could be something totally different altogether. I was on the fence until family and I did an overnight at the Villisca Axe murder house in Iowa. Nothing scary happened, so I wasn't terrified into believing. We did leave a phone recording audio in a room, and when we came back, there was the sound of a ball being bounced in the room a few times, then you hear it stop as if it had been left there. I don't know exactly what happens after death, but that was enough to know there is something. It was a very surreal experience. We call them ghosts, but what do ghosts call them? Would have told you earlier in my life that I would not judge either way because of the lack of evidence. After my dad died abruptly, I will now give you a resounding yes. We had crazy things happening in our house for several weeks after he passed. There were certain parts of the house that spooked me to go into for a while. He didn't die in our house, but we brought a lot of his things home with us to go through. Yes, seen a few myself. Can I prove it? Nope. Doesn't mean I didn't experience it though. Yes, they do to me. It was a story my grandpa told me. One night him and his brother were sleeping. The door to the bathroom opened by itself. They hear footsteps along the floor in their room. The ghost went into his baby cousin's room and then ran out. Him and his brother went to check the baby she was okay. Then asked their uncle and mom if one of them went in their room. They said no. In the same house when my grandpa was older, he saw a little man standing at the edge of his bed. He ran down and told his mom. She said, "That's our little man." I am very sure they do. Backstory: in my previous house, there was 2 bathrooms, one for us and one in the second floor for our maid. At that time, we didn't have a maid, so we would use it when the main bathroom is occupied. Now on to the main story. All of this is based on what my mom told me. I have no memory of this. One day, I really wanted to go to the toilet, but my dad was using it, so my mom asked me to go use the other bathroom. She couldn't accompany me because she's taking care of my baby brother, and so I refused to go to the bathroom because ghosts. I think she's had enough of me being afraid of ghosts, so she shouted, "Where's the ghost? Show me. Where's the ghost?" Fast forward that night when everybody is asleep except my mom, she heard a creaking sound, as if someone is opening the bedroom door. She thought it's a cat or something, so she checked it out, but there was nothing outside. So she went back to bed but didn't sleep. The door flung open suddenly, but nothing was there. My mom shouted on the top of her lungs. My dad, who's an extremely light sleeper and will wake up at the slightest noise, did not wake up at all. My dad will wake up no matter how tired he is, he's just wired different, lol. Anyway, that's what convinced my mom that ghosts do exist, and she's never said "show me the ghost" again. I work in a haunted hotel and I've worked in a haunted bar before. Explored cemeteries in the woods with friends back in the day. I've had too many experiences with too many other people witnessing the same activity as I did. My boss had to catch me when something invisible shoved me really hard in the basement a couple months ago while we were getting Halloween decorations. Ghosts are real, I'd cow, but they're out there, doing little Casper stuff. In a way I think so. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only change from one form to another. In my opinion, yes, because I have seen them on 2 separate occasions. I think that billions of years of brain activity is what produces the reality we now know. Maybe it is the evolution of the brain that allows life beyond death. I don't know. I'm an atheist in the sense I don't believe in a conscious, all-knowing, all-powerful God. But I've experienced some things that make me question if there's a hidden order we're not fully tapped into. Maybe it's time deferred reflections of sort. I know sounds like BS, certainly does to me. There's a ghost at my work. We've seen things jump from impossible positions, and watched as the phones dialed numbers by themselves. People have reported seeing a man in a white coat pass them, only to turn around and no one is there. For context, the basement used to be shared with the doctor's office next door, but at some point, A wall was put up. One of the docs died by being hit by a train. I always am sure to say hi when I go into the basement storage. Just in case. And one time, I had a wicked cold and had to file SHD down there. I made several passes in and out before I heard shuffling, thought it was mice. But I found an unopened bottle of Vicks Rub from like the 60s or something sitting in the middle of the aisle. It was placed where I totally would have seen it before. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.